Are you a man looking for an intensive program to help you overcome your sexually addictive behaviors? Gateway to Freedom is your answer. Gateway to Freedom is a 3-day intensive workshop for men seeking to overcome sexually addictive behaviors. Whether married, single, or divorced, Gateway to Freedom will help men regain hope for a new life of purity and real contentment. The workshop is conducted by experts in the field of sexual addiction recovery. Your experts have over 35 years of combined experience. Read testimonials of workshop alumni at gatewaymen.com. Get all the info and register online at gatewaymen.com or call 1-800-49-PURITY.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I'm the founder of the Gateway to Freedom workshop. I want to personally invite you to be part of our next workshop, coming up March 27th through the 29th in Pennsylvania. So call us today at 1-800-49-PURITY or visit gatewaymen.com.
Welcome to Pure Sex Radio, training men, educating women. Are you ready to get real and start living each day in purity? This dynamic program is designed to educate, encourage, and equip listeners with the tools necessary for living a life of sexual purity. Pure Sex Radio brings you the best in mobile talk radio. Listen to real-life struggles, learn how to overcome lust, pornography, and sex addiction, and get serious about purity. Your hosts for Pure Sex Radio are Jonathan Doherty and Stephen Cervantes. Jonathan is the director of Be Broken Ministries and founder of the Gateway to Freedom Workshop for Men. Stephen is the founder of the Hope Counseling Center. Visit us online at puresexradio.com. And now, please welcome Jonathan and Stephen on Pure Sex Radio.
Good day, radio listeners. Welcome to this week's edition of the Pure Sex Radio broadcast. We're glad to have you here with us. My name is Jonathan. I'm here with Stephen. Stephen, how you doing?
I'm walking in grace today.
Excellent. That's a good thing to be doing. Hey, I wanted to let you know, listeners, that we have these workshops called Gateway to Freedom that happen throughout the year. And these are 3-day workshops for men who are they're struggling with all kinds of different sexual brokenness issues. It could be pornography, affairs, same-sex attractions, anything that a guy might like to overcome. And these workshops are designed to help a guy be able to go really deep and unpack a lot of those core issues that are part of such struggles. And we've got them coming up, like I said, throughout the year. We've got about a dozen of them planned on the calendar this year. If you'd like to learn more about Gateway to Freedom, just go to gatewaymen.com, or you can call us toll free at 1-800-49-PURITY. So, Stephen, I guess we're gonna kind of continue on with what we were doing last week, in just this idea of sort of kind of how the messiness of recovery and how guys kind of unpack their thoughts and their feelings and some of the insights that they're gaining. And so I wanted to just pass it off to you and see if we can kind of continue this conversation.
Yes, and we're sharing insight that some of the men have shared with us. And we are so grateful that the men that work with us also give us permission to share these ideas. Mm-hmm. We never say anybody's name because that's their business to tell their story. But we have to learn from one another. And so it's exciting when a man sits around with another man in a group and they open up and they start helping each other learn. And so we're probably having a little group session right now on this podcast, mm-hmm. because we're sharing ideas of the process in little steps or pieces, when the awakening process, when the cleaning up process, and when a man is moving forward, the things you're going to hear. And so let me just launch right into the next one, because one of the things we hear is I feel like a heavy weight has been lifted off of me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting around telling my story, and I didn't get judged, and I'm okay, and you guys still think I'm an okay, regular guy, even though I've done stupid things. That's not who I am. I've done stupid things. I'm made in the image of God. But after I tell my story and sit in your presence and find grace, a weight falls off of my being that I've carried, a heaviness in my soul and my spirit, my emotions. There's been such a heaviness on me, and it's falling off.
Now, I want to spend a little time kind of unpacking this, because this is one of, if I had to, let's say, rank the things that guys end up saying in recovery, this would make the top 5 in terms of, I think, statements that guys make. I mean, wouldn't you agree? I mean, it's one of those that gets said quite often in terms of the idea of, oh, I just felt like a weight was, and they usually say it in relationship to when they tell their story, right? But I want to kind of maybe dig a little deeper in this, because what do you think is going through guys' minds when they're thinking about what that weight is? Like, what is the weight that they've felt? I mean, what? Because I think it can be a whole lot of different things. Okay.
Shame is part of it. Let's go back and forth, because I know you have thoughts too on it. But one of them is when a guy stops speaking about himself in a shameful way, like you're just a bad, defective thing. That's, if I can stop that dialogue, it sort of helps me, right?
Yeah.
If I could be a normal guy, because I'm a freak, right? I hide and I deceive and I lie and I can't stop myself. I must be a freak, right? Mm-hmm. But when you don't look at me like I'm a freak and you call me brother still,
there goes the weight, right? Yeah, the weight comes off.
Yeah. What you got? Any thoughts about?
I would say one of the weights it lifts is also the idea of deception, or that darkness that comes with just being hidden and in the dark, and I think the idea that says I can't come into the light, and for some of the reasons you're talking about, the shame, but just this idea that I'm afraid. I'm
dirty.
Yeah, I gotta hide.
Bad.
Yeah, and so I think that's some of the weight that comes off. I think fear is another big one that comes off, because I think that's part of. I think shame and fear are cousins that just kind of they wrestle.
Tag
they
team
wrestle in
against you, right?
Exactly. It's like if you're starting to feel, a sense of worthiness. So, like, in other words, you're kind of combating some shame. Then guess what? Fear jumps up and says, "But you can't tell anybody, because what would happen? What if happened if
you're going to be rejected?
Exactly.
You're going to be banished into outer dark. Nobody will want to be around you. You're disease.
Yeah. So I think it's important, listeners, for you to think through. What are the things that are weighing on you right now? What are the things that feel very heavy on your soul? That maybe you felt like that's what's keeping me from telling anybody about it. That's what's keeping me from processing this openly. And those are the very things that this person here was saying, those are the things that get lifted. Like when you start telling your story, when you get involved with other people who care, and it's like all that weight can come off of you.
It's funny because when you said the top 5, you sort of surprised me. I go, well, I don't know how the rest of these all rank. But you know what just occurred to me? The next one is in the top 5. And it goes like this. I thought I was the only one. Mm-hmm. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the freakiest of the freaks in the 99 percentile of freakiness.
Yeah.
That I was the only one so warped and distorted and deceived and in bondage. I thought I was the only one.
Well, and I can personally identify with this one, because this was my number one. I mean, this was the number one thing that was the revelation to me when I started my recovery, because I remember, for those of you who don't know my story, I was introduced to porn at 12, secret addiction all the way through my mid-20s, got even into my early marriage, and eventually, involved other people and prostitutes and all kinds of things. And eventually my wife left, and that was kind of the catalyst that got me into recovery. And I remember the first time that I was invited to go to a group. I was seeing a counselor, but I remember it was the first time I was invited to go to a group, and I mean, I just had this panic in my soul because I was thinking,
others,
yeah,
people, regular guys will be there.
Well, and here's the funny thing: in you get so good at self-deception. I wasn't even considering the counselor like a human being. It was like, well, this counselor is just this entity that I can go into privately, that they're bound by the law not to tell anybody anything. So it's kind of like they were still not quite human.
Oh, that's great.
Whereas then when this counselor was inviting me to go outside of that environment into a group of quote unquote regular guys, I just remember the fear that came over my being. And part of it was because of this very thought. That none of those guys in there are going to be able to identify with me. None of those guys have thought the things I've thought or done the things I've done. I mean, I'm going to be the wretch. I'm going to be the freak in there. And it was such an eye-opening experience to go into a group of guys and then hear their stories and realize I'm just like them. They're just like me.
We're all sexual beings.
Yeah.
And we struggle with it.
And so this was one of those, this was a combination of having that lie blown up that I'm the only one and the weight lifted off of my shoulders.
Oh, that's
because
good.
That could be one of the weights that you're carrying is I'm the only one. Nobody else is like me. Nobody else could understand me. Nobody else could actually understand the things I've thought or the behaviors that I've committed. And just give yourself some time in a group, and you'll find out that when you start getting honest about your story, we're way more alike than we are different.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you told that story of going in the first time and staying and working long enough, and now you lead the group, and you see terrorized men come in with panic and fear, and they can barely drag their body in. They pace at the front door before they come in and sit down, you know what I mean? And then they come in, they don't open their mouths, right? And then after a couple of group sessions, they're just one of the boys.
Well, I always wonder if these new guys, if they wonder, why am I smiling at them all the time? You know,
you mean the leader?
It's like, I know what they're thinking. I try to let them know, just take a deep breath. You're going to figure it out. This is where you need to be.
This is a safe place.
Right.
So now I'm going to try another one because you came up with the top 5. I want you to tell me if this is in the top 5. I realize now, after talking and being more honest and more transparent and seeing how I've been deceiving, I realize now that I am not alone. Where is this insight that goes, wow, I'm not alone in this battle.
I think we're just working through the top 5 right now. I mean, this is another one of those, and I think it dovetails with that one about thinking that you're the only one. It's sort of the opposite side of that coin.
Yes.
You know, or it's the door through which you find hope. Because, and I don't want to sound overly dramatic when I say this, but I don't think it can be overstated how critical it is to know that you are not alone. I mean, because, man, think about it. You know, a sexual addiction, really an addiction of any kind, it continually draws you out into aloneness. It draws you out away from relationships. It draws you further into yourself in an unhealthy way, where you're just self-absorbed, you're self-focused. Everything's about your desires and your needs. And so it naturally draws you to a belief that you are alone. Add into that your shame and your fear, and that keeps walls up where you think, you know, nobody can know me, because if they did, they wouldn't want me. And so you just keep drifting further and further and further into this aloneness.
Yes.
So the idea of when you finally step into an environment where somebody else says, you're welcome here, your story and all, I can't even overstate how important that is for a person to know they have a brother, they have a sister who wants to help them. And it's like, it's the power of friendship. And I think, we sort of romanticize that, or we make it something that should be an after-school special kind of, but it's like, it's powerful. Like friendship, just knowing you're not going to have to travel this road alone.
Yeah, and the Bible talks
It's
about
huge.
fellowship and, meeting together, and don't forsake meeting together and getting to know one another and pressing in. But, when you were talking earlier, you said, what is lifted off that you feel a sense of lightness? The aloneness. I'm all alone. The heaviness of feeling alone falls off.
And the idea that, because see, this is the other thing too. A lot of people think that, listen, if I tell my story and I enter recovery, then it's all on me. Meaning, here I go again. Over here, yeah, okay, I bear the full consequences of all these things I've done. But you know what? Then I get into recovery. Well, it's all on me. I got to do this whole thing. And you start realizing, listen, it's a shared burden. I mean, ultimately, Stephen, you and I are personally responsible for the decisions we're going to make each and every day with our minds, with our behavior, with our tongue, whatever. But as far as in terms of how we can journey, you know what? I can jump on the phone and I can share a struggle with a guy. I can ask for prayer from these people over here. I can get into a group. It's a shared journey. And so it's amazing how much lighter the load feels when you're willing to share it with those who want to help.
Manhood and maturity, right? And growing up and providing for a family. I mean, that's heavy stuff, right? It's heavy stuff. And it's lighter when we share it. The other thing that occurs to me is we have listeners out there that are alone and not in a group. And so I say, if you can't find a group, start a group. Get another man and get a book and just say, we're going to work on the sexual battle that every man experiences. And just hold that ground, because somebody else will show up, and then you get a little identity, and then tell the church leaders, send those guys to us. And okay, we don't have a leader. Okay, we'll learn together. That's another group, and that's just fine,
Yeah, I think it's a shame when a lot of people think that there's so much, qualifying that needs to go on in order to have a group. You know what a group is? It's 2 or 3 guys that are getting together to go on a common journey. That's all a group is. So you don't have to have a massive amount of skill. You don't have to. It's like, listen, do you want to be sharpened? Do you want to share the journey? Then get a couple of guys together.
Because the book is the resource, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's put a lot of time into writing a book, and most people have good ideas, and you get 3 or 4 ideas out and then go to the next book and just keep building and, learning and talking and letting God's Spirit move. And
that's part of, this whole last week and this week, we've really been talking about kind of like the messiness of recovery, right?
Yes.
Well, that's part of it. There's no perfect group.
That's right.
And stop looking for one, by the way, if you keep bouncing from group to group. There's no perfect group. It's just a bunch of broken men getting together saying we want to be better. And so let's just let it be what it is and keep moving forward.
So we're talking about concepts that men share back with us as they proceed down their journey. And we're offering these concepts as a way to look inside yourself and know yourself. Because ultimately we're called to submit everything to God. Well, you can't submit it if you don't know it, right? You have to know yourself, so that if you have fear, you submit it. If you have avoidance, you submit it. If you're using or abusing, you submit it. So we're giving you concepts that men have sort of given to us that said, here's an aha moment. Here's a transition point. I knew I was moving because I hit these markers. So one of the men said this, I realized for the first time, I only know shallow love. I do not know deep love. I have been a shallow man doing simple things on the surface when we're made in the image of this big God that's all about love and the wonderful complexity of love, like grace and mercy. But all I'm doing is playing around in the kiddie pool, wading in the kiddie pool when I could be out there in the ocean exploring this grand vastness.
And it's interesting, there's so many things that come to my mind in response to that. One is I get this sense, especially when maybe you're talking about, if I'm thinking about the context of marriage and how there's this, what we might call a functional relationship, and then what we would say is an intimate relationship. And it's kind of the difference between what you're talking about there, shallow love versus deep love. But there's a lot of context in which I think you can share this, because I think shallow love is still continuing to have too much of our focus on ourselves. It's the idea of saying, yes, I'll love you, but I still kind of want there to be sort of a back end that comes around and blesses me, that sort of still kind of serves me, still kind of, listen, Steve, I'll be happy to serve you, but I kind of want it to fit my paradigm. I still kind of want it to serve me. And that's kind of a shallow love, because it's saying, I'm going to care, but I'm really still thinking about
just
me.
a little bit, or if it's too difficult, I'll have to pull back.
Yeah, there's a definite limit to my willingness to sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And I think the deeper kind of love is starting to realize that it's a life poured out. So, it doesn't mean there's no boundary. It doesn't mean you know that you're that there's no like moral boundary. But what I mean is, it's the idea of saying, when I'm really going to love someone, then all of me is poured out on their behalf for their well-being. And that's a whole different kind of level of service. It's a different level of sacrifice.
Like dying to self and just giving for no return.
Yeah.
Right?
And I want to make it very clear to listeners, listen, I am not there yet. I mean, it's like I got a lot more stretching and growing to do in that area, but I think that's still what we're striving for, is to move further away from this shallow love, which is still very much about me, and I want to care, but only if it really comes back to me, to a much deeper Christ-like love, which is saying, you know what, even though you offended me, I will still love you, and I will still lay down my life for you, and I will sacrifice and give.
Wow, that's big. Should we end the show there? That's a great thought. Okay, so we're back to comments made by men that are trying to tell us about what's happening in their being. And so one man said it this way. He said, I have sadness in my soul, and I have hope in my spirit. And you think to yourself, how do those two go together? But I'm sad in my humanity, my flesh. But there's such renewal that I'm feeling, and strength. And
you know what I would say? For those of you who listened to last week's broadcast, we sort of had to end a little bit abruptly about this idea of carrying a healthy tension in your being, and that I don't think we're ever going to get to a place this side of heaven where we don't have a sense of tension. And part of it is because we are wrapped in flesh. There's going to be a struggle in our being. It doesn't mean that we have to be controlled by that struggle, or that we have to be controlled by, those fears or anything like that. But I think this is a beautiful description of what I was trying to say there, is that, you know what? There are real emotions that we feel in life based on what's happened to us, what we've done, different things like that. And I believe we can simultaneously carry a sadness in our soul, a sadness, a sort of a deep feeling of maybe grief, in our being
for all the dumb we've done,
and at the same time yet be alive and hopeful and filled with joy in our spirit. And I'm not saying those things cannot be carried simultaneously. I really do believe you can carry those simultaneously. And in fact, I think it's the hope and the joy that we have in our spirit that allows us to move forward in whatever we're carrying in our soul.
That's right. And we only have today. And all the sadness is a look back. But we have a brand new, fresh day. Anne of Green Gables used to say it's a new day with no mistakes in it yet. We got a fresh, crisp, new day. She used to make mistakes all the time, right? And she goes, every morning is new with no mistakes in it yet. And it's like, that's what we're talking about in our spirit. We got a new, fresh, crisp day to live. Let's do better. We don't have to do the old.
And that's why one of my favorite passages to bring to mind is the fact that, God's mercies are new every morning. Great is His faithfulness.
Yes.
So every morning there's fresh mercies. There's a clean slate. And so whatever you're carrying in your soul, don't ignore it. Don't deny it. But we live now from our spirit. And so let your spirit sort of guide where your soul needs to go in terms of handling and working through these various emotions. Because this guy is basically saying, you know what? I'm not denying the sadness that I feel in my soul, but I see a greater power and a greater truth at play in my spirit, which is that I can have hope. That even though I'm carrying something very heavy in my soul, it doesn't have to drown me. It doesn't have to suffocate me. It doesn't have to keep me from moving forward in where I need to go in growth and recovery.
That's good. So the next line goes like this. I have this new, very odd happiness. And I'm going to try to explain it to you because I don't know exactly how to say it. But I have a new happiness because I'm cleaning me up. I'm cleaning me up. And somehow that makes me happy. Well, what do you make of that statement?
Well, okay, I have to preface this by saying I have definite OCD tendencies. and so one of the things, and I've got a lot of perfectionism in my history and all these kind of things. So one of the things that's always just really been a bother to me is like when you've got a cluttered room or a cluttered house or dirty this. And so from my perspective, I go, I totally get this. There is a sense of happiness and joy that comes when you look at a place that's been absolutely cluttered and it starts to get put in order.
Yes, that's it.
And I think about that even just from a spiritual or a soul perspective. There is a sense of greater peace and joy when you start feeling like, you know what, things within my being are even kind of being put in order. Mm-hmm. It's not just a complete chaotic mess. I'm not saying that.
No, that's right. We don't know, and we don't go back there, and we're trapped and stuck. And every time we get roughed up. Versus, okay, let's map out what's going on, and let's use good tools now.
Yeah, think about it this way: what is often said about the secrets that we carry? Oh, we don't go into that closet. We keep that closet closed, and a lot of times in recovery, language is used like, "Hey, let us go into your closet. We're going to clean up your closet. Let's come into that secret place in your being." And I think that's a great picture to use because once you open that door, you start getting honest, then there is a cleaning up that goes on. And I think it's reasonable to think that when you start getting cleaned up, you're going to feel better.
Yes.
You're going to feel a sense of joy and happiness.
And isn't it working on the right mission instead of wasting time and energy on the wrong mission?
And that's where I think the happiness really comes from. It's not necessarily that all these things in this closet are being put into perfect order. Good grief, you can get bound by the same heaviness of perfectionism and legalism doing that. It's the idea that your soul, your focus has shifted from let's serve me and make it all about me to, you know what, there's a bigger mission in life than just me. There's some, and in order to actually fulfill that purpose, there's things that need to be put in order in my life. And I think that's where the happiness comes from, is I've shifted away from this very self-absorbed, unhealthy paradigm to one that says, I'm made for something bigger, and I want to go in that direction.
So this comment was made at the end of a weekend where a guy had done a lot of really good work. He said, I'm anxious, I'm fearful, I'm scared to go home, but I want to go home. I want to go home. Right, that's that tension again, because there's been damage and woundedness there. But I can't think of a better place to be than home, family, loved, practicing my new tools. I'm kind of scared, but I want to go home.
And I think that's a great perspective to have, is that, listen, don't deny the feelings that you're having, the very real apprehension or tension. But you know what? It's good to have the thought that I know where I need to be. I need to be with those who love me. I need to be with those I care about the most. I need to be in that environment. Even if it's going to be messy, there's going to be a lot of cleanup to do. It's still the right environment to be in. And that's a good thought.
Yes.
Well, folks, we're going to have to wrap it up there. We hope that these 2 weeks here have been helpful in just your own unpacking of what's been going on in your life and your journey. We would love to come alongside you and help you in that journey. You can contact us at puresexradio.com or call 1-800-49-PURITY. And we look forward to having you back here next week on the Pure Sex Radio broadcast.
Pure Sex Radio is paid for by Be Broken Ministries. Visit us online at puresexradio.com.